meeting is now being live streamed. Before we start the official business of the agenda, many of you will be aware of the sad passing of County Councillor Richard Chataway. Richard was not only a county councillor, he was a former borough councillor and former mayor. And I think it is appropriate that we take this opportunity for a 1 minute silence. Thank you. That brings us then on to the formal business of the meeting. Can I just advise that everyone's microphone should be switched to the mute function unless I call you to speak, that the meeting is being live streamed and will be available for future broadcast as well. Can I ask members if you can turn your mobile phones off to silent or switch them off, because it's always the way, isn't it? When you're called to speak, you're likely to get a phone call at the same time. I think that's it in regard to the meeting protocol. We are all here, so there are no apologies for absence. Declarations of interest, are there any in addition to those printed on the agenda pages? I'm not seeing any. Item 4 is to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. Is someone happy to move they are a correct record? Councillor Watkins, thank you. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And are they agreed? I'm not seeing any hands, so we agree the minutes of the previous meeting. Item 5, public consultation. I'm informed we've had no public statements, but we do have Councillor Evans and Councillor Kondaka wishing to speak on item 6, and in regard to items 7 and 8, Councillor Kondaka. So I'm going to keep the agenda in the order it's written because that seems sensible. Moving then to item 6, updated supplementary planning documents. Neil, can I come to yourself?
Certainly, Chair. Basically, Cabinet is recommended to endorse the updated supplementary planning documents, which going forward I will call SPDs, for approval at the next full council meeting. This follows on, Chair, from their initial approval at the March Cabinet meeting. So basically, to recap, the SPD's supplementary planning documents provide additional guidance to the policies in the adopted borough plan. Once adopted, the SPDs will be formal council guidance providing more detailed information for developers, and they will assist officers and members when assessing planning applications. One thing I want to point out before going on, Chair, is the fact that supplementary planning documents actually protect, in a way, residents from developers actually doing what they wish to do. You know, they support the concept plans, they form a framework in which the council and developers can work together. Since March, Chair, further amendments have been made to the SPDs to provide further guidance where necessary and to bring the SPDs in line with any policy requirements, the council's evidence-based documentation, and to reflect the latest pre-application and planning application proposals. Given the number of changes, it's quite right that it is considered appropriate for Cabinet to reconsider and approve all the supplementary planning documents, as this will ensure that there is a robust basis for their consideration at full council. Now, Chair, following the adoption of the Borough Plan, planning applications are being submitted or prepared for a number of the housing and employment allocations. The adoption, as I said, protection of the supplementary planning documents will ensure that there is clear guidance in place for the developers to work in which to turn should deliver more sustainable and high quality development in the borough. So, Chair, for these reasons, I recommend that these SPDs, supplementary planning documents, are taken forward for adoption at full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Neil. Can I bring in firstly Councillor Evans? Would you like to unmute and join the meeting?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I too would like to associate myself with the comments made regarding County Councillor Chataway, and of course my thoughts go to his wife, family, friends during this difficult period. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this item this evening. I have to disagree with Councillor Phillips. I don't believe that the policies, specifically the policies for HSG4, really do protect residents in the community. And I believe that for a number of reasons. First of all, on the concept plan for HSG4 on page 24, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, you keep referring to Judd Close as a vehicular access point onto the fields, and it's really confusing because the council said during the hearings, you know, don't worry, it's just an emergency access point. If that's the case, why can't it be detailed as that in the plans? Because I've got residents who are genuinely frightened by the prospect of Judd Close being used as a main access point to support any future dwellings on HSG4. And really, I would like to ask Councillor Phillips directly if he will just amend that to read emergency vehicular access only to give residents that clarity. The said councillor claims to have visited Judd Close, and I suspect he has, and he said himself that he's got concerns about that. So I hope that he will support a small amendment with regards to that policy. With regards to the site opportunities and constraints layout plan on page 21, I have to be honest, it's not accurate, and it is certainly not to scale. Members will note the public right of way to the east of Norwood Farm, which goes across to the A444. I can absolutely and categorically assure you that is not the public right of way as detailed on an Ordnance Survey map. And I've looked at the last two recent editions of Ordnance Survey, and that is not how the public right of way is printed. So I beg to ask how the council could possibly adopt the HSG4 plans if one of the layout maps is inaccurate. I'm really disappointed that you have not included any allotment provision within the plans for HSG4. I note that you have for other sites, and you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, my ward is being lumped with 600 houses, the largest allocation in Bedworth, I would add. The very least you could do is meet the demands of local residents and include some provision for allotments within the supplementary planning documents, as you have done for other sites. Equally, on the concept plan on page 24, you've got a vehicular access point sign just to the north of the nook. I'm really confused because that's in the middle of your proposed formal open spaces, including playing fields. So are you telling me that you want to have a park / playing field with a main road going through the middle of it? I don't agree with the position of the school, but I have made reference to that in the consultation. And I do have a question. I'd like every portfolio holder to confirm that you have read the consultation responses before voting on this item this evening. In conclusion, I cannot support the concept plans for HSG4, factual inaccuracies and policies that, in my opinion, would put people's lives in danger. I look forward to casting my vote against these plans when they come to full council next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Are there any points of clarification of Councillor Evans? No. We have Adam James here, who is an officer in this regard. Adam, can I bring you in? You may be able to answer some of the queries that... Oh, sorry. I'll come to... Yes, I'll bring you in at this point. I know I've got Councillor Condar coming in, so I've probably done it in a different way to normal. Apologies, Councillor Condaka, but I'll bring in Adam to answer any queries on this now, since I've already said so.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So taking those points in turn, the first point that was made was in relation to Judge Close and the access point that's shown on the concept plan. Access points were discussed at length as part of the examination hearings, which Warwickshire County Council were in attendance at, and the concept plans have been drafted having regard to the strategic transport assessment that Warwickshire County Council produced on behalf of the council, which made various recommendations in terms of access. Again, access will be looked at in further detail at the planning application stage, and Warwickshire County Council, as the highway authority, will be consulted and asked to comment on those particular considerations having regard to highway capacity and highway safety issues. The second point that I noted was in relation to the public right of way that's shown. Public rights of way are indicated on the definitive map of public rights of way which Warwickshire County Council hold, and my understanding is that the public rights of way therefore reflect what's shown on the definitive map, which are not necessarily shown on ordnance survey maps. To my knowledge, that's accurate, but it's something that we, of course, will check. But the concept plan does seek to incorporate the public rights of way within the site and ensure that they're used as walking and possibly cycling routes to serve the site as well. In terms of allotment provision, the policies were drafted in consultation with the council's parks and open spaces teams, and they've made recommendations to us on allotment provision and the way forward. And in this instance, on-site provision was not recommended as a policy requirement. That's not to say that there may not be Section 106 obligations to request contributions to go towards off-site provision if that's considered necessary.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you for that. Councillor Condaka, would you like to unmute and address the meeting?
Yeah, thank you very much. My house backs onto HSG1, so I'll declare that at the start. There's a mixed bunch of things in the supplementary planning documents, some good, some bad. On the positive, the new changes about limiting the size of the clusters of affordable housing is massively to be welcomed. On my patch, I've had a problem on one of our developments from a large group of social housing, where just a very few residents cause a problem for everyone else on the whole estate. So managing the size and clustering, I think it's called pepper potting in planning, is very important to get a layout that hopefully works. On the HSG1 site, I don't know if you've got the diagrams around, but there's a figure 6 of HSG1, which it does actually have quite a reasonable green corridor along the western boundary of the, eastern boundary of the existing St Nicholas Park. Unfortunately, you say not to scale on these maps and things, and what developers are trying, particularly the current Bellway development, is to make that green corridor only 5 metres wide. And I'm sure the Cabinet will agree that nature does actually like things that are 10 and 20 metres wide. So it'll be important to have these green corridors, and I hope these things get enforced. We also have the issue of plans going to planning committee prior to the next full council. And I know some of the developments at previous council planning meetings have been deferred till after the full council, and I hope the same courtesy will be afforded to the Bellway development, because obviously we can't have some developments being delayed to take advantage of supplementary planning documents and other ones racing through and ignoring the supplementary planning documents. So I hope that is taken into consideration. As I say, it's a mixed bunch, and there's a lot of issues like air quality that haven't been properly addressed for years. We have a massive air quality problem in Nuneaton and also in Bedworth. And Bedworth doesn't have any air quality management zones at the moment. partly because the poor air quality is in the industrial areas. But obviously that's an area where people pass through, and I think air quality needs reviewing before we look at these plans. And also there's a lot of missing development around HSG1, for example. We've got a new Red Road development that's being constructed at the moment, which isn't on the concept plans. These concept plans are very, very much out of date now. It's about 8 years out of date, and there's developments on here that just aren't marked. So with those points, I'd just like to echo again, can we please make sure that the developments that are going to planning in the next couple of weeks are deferred till the supplementary planning is actually adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Councillor Kondaka, please accept my apologies that I didn't bring you in straight after Councillor Evans. It was my error in calling the officer to address some of the points before you. Are there any points of clarification for Councillor Kondaka? In that case, then, thank you for your contribution. Adam, is there anything you need to come back on at this stage?
Councillor Kondaka made the reference to the buffer, which relates to the latest planning application proposals, and obviously those are separate to this process. I'm not sure how plan applications are to be decided. Obviously, they need to be determined within certain timescales, and I'm not aware of when that application is likely to go to committee, unfortunately. Air quality was raised. Again, one of the documents is the air quality supplementary planning document, which hopefully sets out a robust assessment process for planning applications and how they should be addressing issues of air quality, and hopefully that will sort of deliver a betterment in terms of air quality in the borough. And I think that was all I noted.
Thank you. Any member wish to come back on any item? Can I ask a question, Adam? There was a suggestion that we should await the agreement of concept plans before determining planning applications. Can you just advise on the process for determining planning applications prior to having concept plans approved? Is that possible?
If a planning application is submitted before we have the concept plans adopted, the planning applications will be assessed against the policies of the development plan, which consists of the Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Plan, which was adopted last year. So the concept plans provide supplementary guidance to them and a little bit more detail, but fundamentally they don't change any of the policy requirements, and the concept plans are essentially visual representations of what the policies say in the plan. So if the concept plans aren't approved, then the policies of the development plan are applied, taking into account all of the relevant material planning considerations as well, which ultimately the concept plan SPDs and the other SPDs will be. They are material planning considerations on adoption.
Thank you very much, Adam, for that. I believe Philip wants to come in. Philip Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to echo the point that Adam's just made, that an SPD or a concept plan is a supplementary planning document, so it doesn't form part of the development plan. It is a material consideration as well as the development plan, but the development plan itself is your starting point. So Planning Applications Committee can determine a planning application without the concept plans in place. I mean, ideally, we would have wanted them in place when the plan was adopted as part of the examination process, but that wasn't possible for a number of reasons. So it doesn't mean, and in fact, it's quite dangerous to say that you can delay a planning application until such time as everything is in place, because you have to judge an application on its merits at the time. Delay could give rise to an appeal for non-determination if there's any delay in bringing forward those concept plans. So I think the advice would always be you must make your determination based on the development plan as it is at Planning Applications Committee on the day that it considers that application.
Thank you very much, Philip. Neil, did you want to come back in on anything?
I'm really pleased that officers and Adam has taken note of what's been said, and I'm sure that conversation will continue. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And just from myself, can I seek reassurance? I think Adam did say he was going to check whether we took the Warwickshire County Council definitive map of public rights of way. If we can just check that is the appropriate way, because if there's something else we should be doing, obviously before we get to full council, I think we should investigate that. You've moved the recommendations, Neil. Is that seconded? Councillor Lloyd is seconding. And can I ask, are members content that this then moves forward to full council?
Yes, Chair.
I think everybody's agreeing. Yep. So that is, those recommendations are then approved. That brings us on to item 7, which is the COVID-19 recovery report. The report sets out the council's approach to recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, covering organisational, economic, health and community priorities. Whilst in some ways the council's emergency response to the current situation is still ongoing, we've also started to focus on recovery from the wide-ranging impacts of COVID-19. Section 3.5 onwards covers organisational recovery and the steps the council has taken to ensure its workplaces are COVID secure in preparation for face-to-face services resuming in a controlled and phased way. At the moment, the majority of the council's workforce that can work from home are still doing so. Other services such as leisure and the civic hall will remain closed pending further government guidance. Section 3.14 onwards looks at the economic recovery actions that have been taking place, which are largely focused on assisting town centre retailers and market traders to reopen safely. This section also includes some high-level economic data which demonstrates the emerging national and local economic issues. Finally, the approach to community and health recovery is discussed in section 3.3. This focuses on providing longer-term solutions for those rough sleepers that were placed in temporary accommodation, longer-term financial inclusion issues, and an update on test, track and trace. Cabinet is asked to note the report. I have one speaker on this, and that is, Keith, Councillor Condicore.
Thank you very much, Chair. First thing to pick out is the theatre, the Pacific Hall. That is seriously going to be affected by the outbreak and any second wave. A pantomime this year looks highly dubious, and I think we do need to review how and if it's got a future and what we do with the Civic Hall. Town centres really need to be more lively. Warwick, Stratford-upon-Avon have done a lot to get cyclists and pedestrians in to their town centres, and we need to be looking at almost going to the small Belgium town model or small Dutch town model for some of our towns, more outdoor seating, etc., and bringing more walking and cycling in. And I keep raising the appalling lack of cycling routes into Bedworth town centre. I think it's an ideal place to cycle Bedworth if you could only get around and across the ring road. The only legal ways of cycling in Bedworth is around the ring road in the centre, and it's a missed opportunity not to look at a cycle route, be it round the backs of the pedestrianised areas or whatever, to actually open up Bedworth and actually try and create more of a street scene with eating and things outdoors. And I think the recovery plan should actually look at a walking and cycling led recovery for Bedworth. On the health issue, we have an almighty issue at the moment with the high COVID rate in the Neaton and Bedworth. We've had 20 deaths at the George Eliot Hospital in June. Not all of them will be from this borough, but obviously there's an awful lot of COVID still in the population, and we're getting a very dangerous message from government about 4th of July, do what you want. We really, really need to do everything possible to kill this outbreak, drive it down to nothing, and then have the party. If we do it the wrong way round and we don't get the social distancing, we're going to go straight into a second wave, which sadly looks like it's happening. And the test and tracing has got all sorts of issues. I went to the Health Scrutiny Committee at County today, really disappointed the Borough Council representative didn't go. There was so much important stuff there about the problems with track and trace and how people aren't able to get onto the mobile test centre unless they say they've got symptoms. This has been a real big issue for some of the outbreaks at schools and police, where we know there's an outbreak at a location, the county council wants all these people tested, and the government's bureaucracy says you have to have symptoms before you start getting into the registration process. Yeah, it's very disjointed what the government's doing in terms of working with the test and trace. And yeah, we have two different systems, and it really is disappointing that we're not getting on top of this, because we could get on top of it. We could be COVID free within a month if we had really good messaging and really got our test and trace really working well. So everyone who was near someone who was infected got tested before they got symptoms, and we actually had a proper way of driving the numbers down every week. Unfortunately, a lot of the numbers aren't even published. I mean, I'm screaming about what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, the numbers going up, and we really need to do a better job. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Condicourt. Any points of clarification of Councillor Condicourt? Thank you for your comments. Any member? Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, first, before I actually start, I want to praise our councillors. I hear what Councillor Condicourt said, but we are not the only authority. We are the smallest authority of all the authorities that share the partnership in dealing with this, and I'll come on to that in a bit. The first thing I want to do is praise our officers, because if councillors took time to look at the timeline on some of the emails that come from senior and lower officers, they are all hours of the night and morning. So they're pulling all the stops out. They're going beyond what their working hours are to make sure that people in Nuneaton and Bedworth stay safe and our town centres are relaunched. Councillor Condicourt mentioned the pantomime. Quite right, the pantomime more than likely is not going to happen this year, given that we should be looking at interviewing people to take part in that pantomime now, and we can't do that because we don't know whether we're going to be up and running. COVID-19, yeah, it was a bolt out of the blue to everybody. I know I was nearly stuck in Spain when they announced it, and I thought, we've got to get home. You know, we're going to be stuck here. But fortunately, we managed to get home, and they locked the country down on the following day. It caught a lot of people all over the world, you know, on the back foot. Chair, there's one thing for certain. In Nuneaton and Bedworth, we need to keep the lid on COVID-19. No doubt in my mind. Up-to-date information is needed on a daily basis, and we should not learn from about a public outbreak on social media. We should have a flow of validated data and information from the top, Public Health England, through to the local council, and we need to be able to share that information. It shouldn't be confidential. It should be able to be shared with all the councils, the councillors and the public. At the end of the day, we've got to know what the R rate is at all times in Nuneaton and Bedworth. And I've got to be honest, from a day-to-day basis, I do not, because I'm not getting the information through. If you're asking the public to be responsible, and we have seen some really irresponsible situations from a minority of the public, playing football in parks, walking up the motorway. I had my very angry daughter phone me up off the motorway. She was trying to get to work. She was a nurse. They were stopping her. You know, at the end of the day, we need the facts and not have to rely on unvalidated information and rumours on social media. After all, we're being told by the government only today local councils will be responsible for implementing local lockdowns. That's the Prime Minister today. How can we do that if we're not being given up-to-date information on what is an ever-changing situation? All organisations must work together from the top, from Public Health England all the way down to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. Chair, what I'm going to propose is not about a stick to beat any organisation, but is to get the correct information, validated information, to the people that need to understand it. As we're in danger of the public thinking it's all over, we haven't got to worry, we'll go back our normal lives. It's not all over. So, Chair, I would like to propose the following: that Cabinet request the External Overview and Scrutiny Committee Chair calls an urgent meeting to discuss the effects of COVID-19 in our borough and seek up-to-date information. I would also want to request, to enable them to get a full picture, we request they invite representatives from Public Health England, Public Health Warwickshire, Warwickshire County Council, George Eliot Hospital, the police and our local MPs. And I think this recommendation is really important if we're going to sit down and understand and recognise where the spikes are going to come. We should be in a situation where we are able to lock a street down, lock a town down. That has got to be a last resort. We're only just getting our town centres up and running again. If we have to start locking down, then we're in problems. So we need to avoid that. So I put that recommendation to the Cabinet. You know, I've got it in writing here. I'll forward it on to officers after. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. I've got Councillor Phillips indicating. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will second that recommendation because Ian is dead right. The lack of information that's been coming forward, it's just been terrible. I mean, Coventry, Warwickshire, going back to 3.36 of the Cabinet report, Coventry, Warwickshire and Solihull are a beacon council for the Test, Track and Trace programme. Well, I understand today that we've been diluted to a pilot area. You know, the local outbreak plan is currently being put together and a very early draft has been shared. This is so far behind the curve. You know, residents in our borough have been really concerned with what's been going on at the George Eliot Hospital. We need to know where these outbreaks are occurring. We need to know it quickly. We need to know the postcodes so we can inform residents. The whole thing about this is has been the lack of communication, and there's been no doubt about it. We have been given information in the past that you cannot share with anybody else. Well, that, as far as I'm concerned, Chair, has got to stop. So I'll second the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. I've got Councillor Watkins next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will obviously go along with the recommendation by Councillor Lloyd, but all I heard from Councillor Condacore is we should be doing this better, we should be doing that better, we should be doing the other better. I think we as a council have done absolutely outstanding work, and I'd like Brent and Simone to send out my thanks personally anyway to every member of staff in what we've done. Housing and Communities have been out there doing the hubs, but along with lots of other staff obviously, but Housing and Communities, which is my portfolio, so I'm obviously going to brag it up. We've took everybody in and housed them. refuse has had vehicles following them so that they can do their social distancing. Jonathan doing all his work in town centres and everything. We've done everything that the government has thrown at us, and we've done it with excellence. Really, we've done above and beyond. So I'd like my thanks to go out to every member of staff that's been involved in this, and we, as a council, have done everything that the government has thrown at us. So thank you to everybody involved.
Chris, I can't but agree with your comments. I think they're really well made. The only suggestion I would have, Chris, yes, of course, I'm sure you want to send personal thanks, but I think Cabinet would want as a whole to send thanks to staff in that regard.
Yeah,
next I've got Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support the recommendation. Can I just add on to 3.6 on the report that we are looking at to use the Civic Hall for appointments and face-to-face, because it says in the document are being considered. We are looking at that now as a way forward. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the positive recognition we've been given by the West Midlands employees for the waste management team. They've worked above, as most of our officers have, they've worked above and beyond. So it's really nice to get some recognition for the waste management team.
Yes, really pleased you said that, Councillor Shepherd, because I think a lot of members of staff have gone above and beyond. And I think I mentioned at the last Cabinet meeting that we had officers sending emails well into the night and very early in the morning telling us what was going on. I think everybody's worked way over and above. I hear clearly some of the comments from Councillor Condaka about cycleways, pedestrian routes, etc. They are the function of Warwickshire County Council, not this authority. And so I think, you know, I'm sure Councillor Condaka, you will raise those points with the County Council. I think in regard to the suggestion that Councillor Lloyd has made, seconded by Councillor Phillips, I think actually having local scrutiny of this issue would be really important. And I think that's an excellent suggestion. We want to do everything we can to maintain the good health of our community. That's our number one priority. And to not have it as the number one priority, I think would be a dereliction of our duty as councillors. Councillor Lloyd, are you wanting to come back in?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yep.
As I said in the in my speech, that the one thing I want to reassure organisations, this is not about hitting any one organisation with a stick. It's about understanding everything that's going on and getting all the accurate data to the people that are going to be delivering any future possible lockdown. The other thing, and maybe I should have declared an interest from a personal point of view, I am one of the people that are isolated, along with millions of other people are through this country. I'm lucky I have a garden. I'm lucky I've got a wife that is isolated with me. There's a lot of people out there that are isolated in flats, masonettes. They haven't got a garden. They're on their own. Their mental health is suffering. We have to do this for them as well as the rest of the public. And I plead with the public, you know, if we well and truly want to pull a lid on COVID-19, they have been working with us, but that minority that's not working with us, they have to have a change of heart, or the death rate is going to go up. There's no ifs and no buts. So, you know, I ask everybody to work with us, every organisation, and the members of the public, all the members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think, does health now fall under Mr. Richardson? Is there anything, Philip, you need to say about the recommendation? It is for a Cabinet asking the chair of the external ONS to set up an urgent one-item meeting to deal with health.
Chair, that's perfectly acceptable. It's certainly one of Cabinet's sort of mandated responsibilities to ask OSPs to undertake work of this nature. So there's no difficulty with it at all.
Thank you very much. Right then, are we all happy with that recommendation? I think everyone was indicating they were. So proposed by Ian, seconded by Neil, and we're all in agreement with that. Thank you very much. Hopefully that can be set up at the earliest opportunity. That brings us then on to item 8, which is the Delivering Our Futures 2019 to 2031 assessment plan. So 2020-2021. This report presents the Delivering Our Future assessment plan for 2020 to 2021 to Cabinet for approval. Cabinet approved the Delivering Our Future plan 2019-31 in March 2019, and the plan focuses on 3 overarching strategic themes: transformation, investment and collaboration. To ensure the Council stays on track to achieve its aims by 2031, an annual delivery plan is prepared by management team and senior managers, setting out the actions that will be taken that year and the responsible officer. The proposed delivery plan for 2021 is shown at Appendix A and also includes any actions identified at this point related to COVID-19, both in dealing with the current pandemic and the recovery from it. We do have a speaker on this, Councillor Kondaka.
Thank you very much, Chair. This plan's massively been blown out the water by obviously the COVID outbreak, but even before then, a lot of the housing targets and things in it were unrealistic. And I do think we need a sanity check on this plan before pushing forwards. Obviously, the population of the not just the borough, but the sub-region is going to be massively impacted by the universities taking on less students, less migrant workers working in the car factories, and sadly, a loss of people during the outbreak itself. Economically, there's a massive challenge as well, particularly if we want to create a cinema or something in the centre of Nuneaton. At a time when a lot of the chains actually will have massive cash flow problems and not be undertaking massive projects. So I think we need a sanity check before we race ahead with this. And we also need to review what size the population of the borough will go to. I note in the media Warwick and Stratford District Council are talking about working together on a new version of their local plan jointly. And I do think we urgently need to review our local plan to make it more realistic. Obviously, that costs money, and it may be a case of doing it maybe with North Warwickshire if councils are teaming up to save money. But we need a realistic plan, and I would like a revolution in Nuneaton and Bedworth in terms of the vitality of our town centres. And I see that not coming from massive investment, but a change into them being friendlier, more Dutch or Holland type centres. And in terms of COVID, it's got to be a driver to relocalise. A lot of the big chains will have problems, and there'll be lots of opportunities. So we need to look at who's going to take on the various shop fronts and businesses, and how we're going to create a future given the crisis. I mean, there was a lot of good ideas surrounding the plans, particularly I quite like the bridge to living ideas, where we open up the bits by the river and park and things. But we need to see how we go forward and what is realistic. There isn't going to be the 50 million, 80 million pounds to do some of these projects in the near term. And we need to look at what housing we're going to have, how to create new styles of working. And I mean, the Green Party, I think the Labour Party is now talking about maybe having a 4-day week. We're going to come out of this pandemic in a different place, a new normal. And what we should be looking in our planning our future is to make a good new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kondaka. I just have to come back and say I've always found both of our towns very friendly places. I have to say, I think you would struggle as a member of our community to visit either town centres prior to COVID-19 and actually somebody not have a chat and a conversation with you. I think our community is actually a lovely community and not unfriendly in any way.
Jack, I just said I didn't mean people unfriendly. I meant all paved, and yeah, it's getting that street culture is what I meant.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Councillor Kondaka, and thank you for your comments. Any cabinet member wish to come in? Okay, the recommendations are as printed, that we approve the delivering our future assessment plan for 2021. Is that agreed? Yep, I'm not seeing anyone against that. Everyone's happy with that. So I've proposed that. I should have asked for a seconder.
Seconded, Chair.
Seconded by Ian, and it was approved. Okay, thank you very much for that. That brings us on to our next item, which is recommendations from overview and scrutiny panels, and I understand there are none. That's correct, Simone. Simone's nodding, so there are none. And then any other items? Item 10, there are no other items either. So can I thank Cabinet very much for your attendance, and indeed to Councillor Condicor and Councillor Evans and officers, and can I declare the meeting closed and ask